From Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, saw the Tar Heels lose tonight to Florida State, 35-25 on this very field right here. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of things.
It's a lot to unpack from 3.5 hours of Carolina football misery.
Exactly. It could be 33 things tonight, probably, but we'll condense it down to 3 for you guys. I think the first place we have to start is really that switch of what happened in the second and third quarter. With Florida State, I believe you said had 342 yards of offense in the second and third quarter combined, was 10-0 Carolina at the end of the first quarter. So if my math is correct, was that 35-7?
35-7.
That's a big switch right there, okay?
Yeah.
That really is what led to it. I know the offense struggled, the defense struggled. We've talked about kind of this Jekyll and Hyde defense that we've seen for the majority of the season. You never really know what you're going to get. A big difference from what we saw last week ago, just 7 days ago against Duke on this very field. So AJ, I think that's where we have to start though, because when you look at those second and third quarters, that's game over, for lack of a better word.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
That was the game.
That was it.
And boy, they were really bad defensively those 2 quarters.
Oh, yeah. No
they were
way
awful.
to put it.
You give up 340. Let's put this into perspective. Mm-hmm. I know maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but well, we'll do that in a second because I want to talk about the team that they lost to tonight.
Yeah, definitely.
And no disrespect to FSU, but I mean those second and third quarter. I'm looking at the mural, and everyone has seen a Bobby Bowden. I was over by the FSU fan section. It looked like his teams were in here for those 2 quarters.
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, they didn't usually have 12 play drives.
No, definitely.
3 plays, boom, in the end zone. Man, Carolina was awful defensively in those 2 quarters. FSU, I think, had in a 6 possession stretch, they scored 5 touchdowns. Now, Mac said after the Duke game when the defense was really good, well, let's hope they don't get all, to paraphrase, fat and happy. Well, they had a good first quarter, but FSU only ran 6 plays in the first quarter, 12
limited.
yards. The offense was chewing up clock, and they were having some success running the ball between the tackles and making some stuff happen in spite of Josh Downs with a false start and a couple drops, that kind of thing.
Drops,
10-0, you think, okay, well, Downs will get going. They got enough here that you figure the defense is flying around a little bit. They're going to cakewalk here.
Yeah.
Man, the script flipped, and there was no seminal moment, no pun intended. It's different spelling.
That's good stuff right there, AJ.
That actually you could look at and say, boy, that was it. I just think that they got they converted 3 third downs on that first scoring drive. That lasted about 7 minutes. It spanned the end of the first quarter into the second quarter, and they converted 3 first downs. Remember, this Carolina defense against Georgia Tech and Duke allowed 5 conversions in 26 third down attempts. So that was the first sign I'm thinking, okay, they're not dialed in.
Yeah.
Because we talked to them earlier in the week about the mindset on third down, about buying in and getting off that field. Hey, it's third down. You're not getting a first down on us. Certainly not in our house. We're getting off the field. It wasn't there.
No,
was it not there because they thought 10-0 and cakewalk? I doubt it, considering the fact that they lost this same team a year ago. They talked about retribution, and Sam said earlier in the week, hey, we all know it. We don't need to talk about it. We know it's there. We got to get payback. Payback doesn't last 15 minutes.
No, definitely
It's a 60-minute deal, and this was not a 60-minute deal. And as the defense was literally falling apart, the offense couldn't move the ball during that stretch. They had drops. I mean, Sam statistically did not have a very good passing game. It's his 3rd pedestrian performance in 6 games passing the ball. But to his defense, there were some drops.
Yeah, a few that I can think of.
And I'm not going to pick on a bunch of guys on here, but and then in that quarter, I believe they also allowed a 41-yard kickoff return. That was actually what started it, because that possession, that first possession that FSU scored on, they started at their own 41, so it was a 41-yard kick return. Jonathan Kim with a tackle for the 2nd straight week. You don't want your kicker getting tackles on kickoffs. That's a bad sign. So literally everything went wrong. They had penalties.
Yep. Yeah, that was a big
They had lack of discipline. And I asked Mac after the game what stood out that went wrong to him during those 2 quarters. And I said, as a second part to the question, was there a common thread to what went wrong in the second half at Atlanta when they allowed 313 yards and had no answers for Georgia Tech? Max said guys were out of position.
Yeah.
Multiple guys, constantly out of position. So I asked Jeremiah, the same question, and he said guys were out of position. So how do you fix it? Jeremiah said he's called a defense-only meeting tomorrow.
Yep.
Where they're going to discuss these things. He went out of his way to defend Jay Bateman, saying, hey, Coach Bateman had us in the right calls. We just weren't executing. I know that they have some youth on defense, but this is the 6th game of the season. These guys have been together since the beginning of August. It's 2.5 months. These are smart kids. They had spring practice. They had player-led practices throughout the summer. And in the 6th game, in a very winnable game, you have multiple guys not in the right position. It seems to me like they have to kind of, I wouldn't say go back to the drawing board on defense, but maybe simplify things so guys aren't in the right place. I don't know what it is. I'm not a coach. These guys get paid a ton of money to figure out, and they're going to have to figure it out because this club, their back is against the wall now, which we'll get into here in a minute. But they don't have much on offense.
No.
As productive as they've been at times. Sam is phenomenal, but he's been ordinary at times. Downs is incredible, but he had a couple of drops, and when he's not going, how else are they going to move the ball? They did have some success running between the tackles for a while.
Yep.
Sam had a 100-yard game, but this club's going to have to win games with its defense. They're not going to be able to win games moving forward with its offense. The defense has to be excellent. And it was not even close to that tonight. It was bad for 2 quarters, and it was bad 2 weeks ago for 2 quarters. It's not a good sign. 6 games into this season, 31 games into this staff's tenure.
Definitely, especially when you consider, like we've talked about, the first half of the schedule on paper at least, and really how it's shaped up this year was supposed to be easier than this next half that's coming up. So we'll talk about that a little bit later.
We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, the second thing, you've already kind of hit on it in something, but I think the second thing we need to hit on too is just the mistakes that we saw, right? Because we saw Sam throw an interception, saw drop passes. I know the Joffrey Brown one kind of stands out. That's been a theme for him this season. And not to pick on Joffrey, but that has been a theme for him this season, and while I believe you don't see him as much out there as you would probably like to, or would think he deserves to be out there. Penalties was something that, we had multiple personal UNC had multiple personal foul calls, just a lot of mistakes. It seemed like a team that at times, especially in that second and third quarter when FSU was starting to really dominate the game, you could tell FSU's confidence was up. You saw Carolina kind of chipping back a little bit, talking a little bit more junk, some penalties that just didn't need to happen, which I think is a sign of frustration, right, because of how the game went down. So a lot of mistakes on both sides of the ball. You talk about guys being out of position. That can be considered a mistake too. That happened it should be for what happened the majority of the game. So mistakes happen on both sides of the ball, and and when you're playing a team like this, I know Florida State's not great, but when you give them that confidence, you give them that belief, which was extremely evident when you looked at Florida State fans and just the Florida State team about halfway through the game, you're asking for trouble, and ultimately Florida State got the win.
I'm not going to name him, but a good friend of mine was in the press box covering the game, and he said that he kind of sensed as FSU got rolling there in the second quarter that Carolina started tightening a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then in the second half, Carolina comes out and they score. They cut it to 21-17,
yep,
28-17.
I believe so, yeah.
And you think, okay, well, how does FSU handle this? Does the real FSU surface, and does the Carolina we thought would be there this year surface? They take over and they pull away. Well, they didn't, and when FSU went right down the field and scored, and they got another big third down that way over there. I think it was from their own 48 or something like that. They got an 18-yard pass conversion on 3rd and 12, and there was nobody near the FSU receiver. And he says that he thinks Carolina really tightened, because that's when a collective belief throughout this stadium, perhaps in the press box, perhaps on that sideline, a lot of you guys watching at home realized, wow,
I mean,
we really aren't very good.
Yeah, that's
and
kind of the reaction.
We have no idea how to handle this, because there was never any mental preparation for North Carolina not being very good. And he said he looked on the field and saw the body language. You could sense that.
Yeah.
And I kind of saw some of that too. Players aren't thinking about the stuff you guys think about during the game or what we think about.
Definitely not.
They're consciously not thinking, man, we really aren't that good.
A lot of people leaving right now.
It's just, it's a subconscious reality soaking in that a club that lost to Jacksonville State, which, by the way, has lost to UAB. It's an FCS team in the Atlantic Sun, in case you were wondering. It's located in Alabama, in case you were wondering. Lost to UAB, lost to Tennessee Martin, and got blown out last week by Kennesaw State.
Not great.
I think subconsciously you're seeing them run up and down the field, and the offense going a 3 and out after their first score in the third quarter. Wow, this is kind of what's going on. This is what we're seeing again. Nobody prepared for this.
No.
So I think the job that Mac has right now, and it's Mac needs to be the leader. The leader right now isn't Sam. The leader isn't Jeremiah Gemmel. There's no voice that needs to be heard right now more than Mac. And Mac has to address all these mistakes. But I think the mistakes, everything is just crunched under this one umbrella. And the umbrella right now is, oh my gosh, how the heck did we get here?
Yeah, what happened? Yeah.
Well, you got here by not protecting Sam. You got here by not running the ball properly between the tackles very well, much of the time. I think 3 100-yard rushing games by Sam in the first 6. We said it a month ago. We didn't think that was a recipe for success for this team, and it wasn't today. It was by necessity. It helps them, but it helps them because other stuff's not working.
Yeah, that's
the reason it's there. We said before, and some people don't like the basketball references. Like, if you lose by 20 and the guy gets 30, well, how many more shots do you take than the rest of the guys? Is he the one dude that can get the shot off? That's kind of what it felt like again.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time it's felt like that. They haven't been bad with penalties for the most part. They've had some untimely penalties, but that unveiled itself tonight. And that's where I'm going back to with what my buddy said in the press box. There was a lack of discipline. Mac even said there was a lack of discipline. They lost their composure. That's a quote from Mac, especially during that third quarter. All kinds of reality settling in.
Oh, yeah.
And when you aren't really good in special teams like they weren't, you don't allow a 41-yard kickoff return and never get an A on your report card next special teams. The defense got shredded. They had no answers for the conventional run. They had no answers for Jordan Travis, and even allowed big conversions. I think he was 11 for 13 passing with 3 scores. And then the offense couldn't move the ball that much. They weren't able to control the game through the offense. All those mistakes, that's what played into it. There's just mistakes all over the place.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this here in a second, because one of the numbers I want to throw out there, which some people might not agree with, I want to throw out there because I think it's to where this team is right now.
Definitely, and I'll just add on to this. I sat in the stands again today, and I got that vibe in the third quarter. That was one of the, and I haven't sat in the stands a lot in the last 3 years, we say that, but obviously have,
I got the vibe just by seeing
Yeah,
more light
I know
blue
you could see
appear
it.
in the stands
Yeah.
every time I looked up.
And what I
go to type something, I look up, more light blue.
Oh, it absolutely started empty. It wasn't a great crowd here to begin with. I don't know how much of a factor weather played, but
next week.
And I think that'll continue to snowball. But just to add to that, it really felt like, I wouldn't even really say frustration from Carolina fans. I think obviously that's there. But from my vantage point, it was kind of like everybody just kind of sitting there in disbelief. And it's almost like, well, what's that? Like, I didn't see this coming. Like, it's almost, I turned to someone I was sitting beside, and I was like, it kind of just feels like people are in shock almost. At least the fans who were in that section. Obviously, fans have a different way of dealing with it. I had a couple guys sitting behind me that think middle of the fourth quarter. I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said, but I'm out of here. Like, I'm leaving. And he just left. So I think that sums it up. Now, last thing I want to hit on real quickly is kind of what does this mean?
That segues into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I tweeted it out after the game, talked to some Carolina fans after the game. I think that was the final straw for this year with this team in terms of home attendance being great again. You got 3 more games coming up against Miami, Wake, and Wofford. I don't expect this place to be packed. Like I said, that's just the vibe I'm getting from talking to people, from how Carolina's performing on the field, from even what we saw 2 weeks ago against Georgia Tech when that went down. You can even go back to Virginia Tech if you want, with all the frustration that's been within the fan base. And when they perform like they have tonight and perform like they did, especially against Georgia Tech as well, can you really blame them with what they were kind of hyped up into beginning of the year? So, AJ, I want to ask you this because I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with this. But like I mentioned earlier, with all the factors from what you saw tonight again, from 3-3, in the season so far, where does this team go from here? Because like I said, it does not get any easier these next 6 games. In fact, I think it gets a lot harder.
I learned early on in my journalism career. I had some amazing mentors at the Wilmington Star-News back in the late 90s. Ryan Henderson, shout out to you, my friend, I'm sure he's not watching. But anyway,
you never know, right?
Amazing mentors. And one of the things that they taught me a long time ago, and this is what I talked to you about when you came on board, my mission every time I go into a game, ultimately is, what does this mean? So to answer the question, where do they go from here, you have to answer the question, what does this mean? Max said after the game, I think it was a lighthearted comment that has apparently been taken.
It's not been taken very well on Twitter.
Very well at all on social media and on our message boards, saying, look, we didn't have us in the top 10, the media did. Well, they were selling.
Yeah, no,
they
I
were
was
selling
there,
a lot of stuff that we haven't seen, and it's not to criticize them.
It's just a fact.
Things haven't worked out. Nobody alive thought 3-3 would happen.
That's a good way to put it.
And in the manner it has happened. No one thought this was going to happen today.
No.
And I've always said the beautiful thing about sports is nobody's always right.
No.
It's real life right before our eyes, and nothing is ever played on paper. I know it's a trite thing, it's cliched, but it's true.
Yeah, 100%.
And this team's first 6 games, which we did a podcast 2 months ago, they just got to get to this first 6. Boy, they have a chance to be game day when they go to South Bend. I mean, NBC's kicking itself for making that a prime time.
Like, dang it, man. We screwed that one.
So what does this mean? It means that this is a mediocre football team that can be really good for stretches and really bad for stretches. The aggregate is kind of right here.
It's the identity now, yeah.
Mac even said, hey, there are only a few really good teams in the country. Everyone else is kind of the same. I don't think this team is where some other mid-level teams are in other conferences. They're not very good because, let's face it, I don't know what Virginia Tech's doing tonight against Notre Dame.
Yeah,
I don't think Virginia Tech's very good. I think they're better than North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay? I don't, Georgia Tech has been pretty bad at times. They lost to Northern Illinois. Carolina's lost teams that lost to Northern Illinois and Jacksonville State.
I think Georgia Tech did end up beating Duke today, but it was close.
But I don't think Duke's very good.
No, exactly.
I mean, this league's not very good. Mm-hmm. The front half of the schedule was the quote-unquote easy half.
Yeah, that's.
And they're 3-3, and they've lost to 2 teams that are not very good. Georgia Tech may end up going to a bowl by virtue of this league, but you know what? North Carolina might not go to a bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
They still have games left at Notre Dame, at Pitt, home against Wake, and at NC State. And if those games were played tomorrow, Carolina would be an underdog in all 4 and maybe a touchdown or more underdog in all 4.
Yeah, definitely.
That doesn't mean they would lose.
No, but.
So where do they go from here? They must fix things. How do you fix it? Maybe you have to make some personnel changes. Maybe Bryson Nesbitt, who's an unbelievable talent, needs to get on the field more.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's not always running great routes in practice. He's still learning because he arrived in August. Get him on the field. Get that stuff on film.
Lose, yeah.
I mean, they need another option other than Josh Downs.
Oh, yeah.
6 games in, it's been proven they don't have any other option.
And I'll throw a stat out real quick. Downs finished with 9 catches today, I believe. Out of every other receiver that caught a ball combined, I think it was like 6 guys, only had 8 total. So finished.
And he had 3 drops.
And it was like that against Duke last week,
He had 3 drops, 2 false starts,
exactly.
So he's human too.
He's the main guy, for lack of a better word.
I like what I see from DJ Jones. He's got to stay. He needs reps. He needs to sit in the film room and see 15 reps and say, wow, okay, I'm learning a lot here. I think that's where they are.
I think so too.
I think that at this point in time, given what they have left, Mac told us twice in late August, once in late August, once in second week of September, we're going to be better next year. We've thought that too.
Yeah, I think that's
we thought this team would get better throughout the course of the year because of the defense. But the offense is kind of a mess. I think, see what some other guys can do. If it's not the scheme, then it's the guys. And maybe you need to take a look a little bit more at some other guys. Maybe if Power Eccles didn't get ejected for targeting on that kickoff,
yeah, it's a big
maybe he gets a little bit more reps. And I'm not dumping on any of the LBs or anything like that. It's just sometimes you got to give the guys in the game.
Got to try something new, right?
Exactly. I mean, it happens in all other sports. It can happen here as well.
We even saw it last year on the defense.
We saw a lot more Kamari Morales today. Yeah. We saw some Nesbitt, like I said. They got to find somebody that can extend drives. They got to find somebody that Sam just doesn't lock in on downs and he's getting pummeled. Yeah. If he's not getting protection up front, you got to maybe find some other guys or simplify the blocking schemes. Yeah. Maybe not pull so much.
Can't just keep doing
I'm just throwing stuff out there, guys. I'm not a coach. I'm not an expert here, but I've seen a lot of this stuff throughout my career. 26 years of doing this, I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of teams with high expectations not reach those expectations and then navigate through the process of figuring out why and trying to fix it. Sometimes you can come out of it. They still have 6 games left. 6 good teams, or not 6 good teams, but I would say 4 good teams.
Yeah, I would agree.
Miami's kind of a disjointed mess right now, and Wofford's FCS. So they have a chance to still get something out of the season, build a lot of momentum, get a lot of positive reps for next year.
That's what you're looking like right now.
Because regardless of what Sam does, and I say that now because we were told all along Sam's leaving, but he's had 3 ordinary passing games.
It's not been great for him.
Who knows? Bottom line is this defense should be really good next year. But they can't be really good if 2 and 3 guys are out of position.
Yeah.
I was talking to Brandon P., who was in the press box with me,
Shout out,
one of
Brandon.
our new staffers. Shout out to Brandon. Did a phenomenal job, just like Noah Stabrowski did last week. And I told him, I said, I think one of the most overblown quotes about football is it's all about the Jimmies and the Joes. Because it's not. You could take the best 11 defensive players in the country, put them on the field, but if you got them in the wrong scheme,
Doesn't matter.
and they break this way and the play goes that way, suddenly they're not so fast. They just lost a split second or more. You have to have the right scheme. The guys have to execute the scheme. I'm not criticizing the scheme. Guys have to execute the scheme. This club has got to break a bunch of stuff down and build it back up, and they're going to have to do it with a more difficult schedule in the back half than what they faced in the front half. That doesn't bode well for the future, but they've got some guys that can play, and I wouldn't put it past them to turn this thing around a little bit, but I think at this point, turning it around might be qualifying for a bowl.
I know. I mean, like I said, when you look at what they are right now, what the rest of the schedule look like, I don't think that's a crazy statement to throw out there. I really don't.
Let me add this one last
go
thing.
ahead.
They've played 24 quarters this year, and maybe 8 quarters they've been the better team
Yeah, I would.
in those quarters.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I know maybe some people might disagree, but
I think that's fair.
a couple of them might be a draw. So you have to throw those in there.
Still a third of the quarters basically you played. You know what I mean?
I don't think this team is anything close to what anybody thought they would be, including themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was just the media. I think this team thought maybe they didn't think they were a top 10 team, but I think they thought they were a little bit better than what we've seen so far this year.
And I smile because a lot of people have fired their arrows at us, but look, I think this is interesting. As a journalist, this is
It's
really
very interesting to cover, yeah.
to see how Mac handles this, to see how they handle not living up to expectations, because everything was on that trajectory,
100 million.
up to Blacksburg.
Yeah.
And now it's fallen off and it's in a jumbled mess.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff behind the scenes are still going very, very well. It may get better here in the next couple of weeks. But what you're seeing on the field, it needs some work. And it's now beyond the honeymoon stage. It's now beyond let's get our guys in their stage. 31 games in, and guys are out of place. Again, 31 games in, they're not that great up front. 31 games in, you got one wide receiver.
It's not great.
They got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, definitely. We could sit here and talk about this one all night. There's a lot of things to
This might be
dissect.
our longest
I know, but
things
I
ever.
mean, like I said, we could probably have done 33 things.
And
tonight, but
kudos to any Carolina fan who stuck through this, given what you just
Appreciate
saw.
that, guys.
Because our numbers are always lower when they lose, and
Losing is bad for
and we
business.
don't root either way. But it's interesting. I think this is more fascinating.
I do too. I think from a journalism perspective, it is
Yeah.
it is more interesting to see a team, like you said, with the expectations coming in, how things have played out so far. Not only that they're 3-3, but how they lost a couple.
And
of
just to
games,
warn the
too.
people, there's still a half of a season to go.
Yeah, it's-
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's college football.
football's crazy. A lot of young guys here. Maybe they get a spark, and boom.
Yeah, I think I told somebody this, but Carolina's just kind of a microcosm of the ACC as a whole. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night, so Carolina's not really out of place with how they've played so far. It's just, expectations.
I
are a
don't
lot
even know
higher.
if Wake Forest won yet today.
They did win.
Okay, except Wake Forest.
6-0 for the first time since 1944.
Deke's going to be unbeaten when they come in here.
And
How about that?
and they look pretty good. Just
And
pulled away. in
Carolina
overtime.
could have a losing record by then.
It's not an unrealistic
Or
thing.
500,
Yeah, it's not. Well, what we saw tonight, that is not something that's unrealistic. Carolina losing 35-25 to Florida State on this very field right here. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We've been TarIllustrated.com. For more insight analysis from tonight's game, make sure you head on over to TarIllustrated.com. Link in the description below. Great time to be over there. Get involved on the message boards if you're a premium subscriber. And if you're not, go over there and sign up. It's a great time to do so ahead of basketball season. Especially like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well so you know every single time we upload. And see you guys on the next one. Thanks.